This will forever be one of my favorite transformations. Kevin signed up looking like this. Decent amount of muscle, also decent amount of body fat. When he signed up, he said he wanted to look like Jason Statham. But he said he only managed to nail the hairstyle so far. 18 weeks and 14 kgs of fat loss later, he now looks like this. He only went to the gym 2-3 times per week. He did not track calories or spend any time faffing around with nutrition apps as a busy CEO with 3 children. He had 2 weeks over Christmas when he didn't diet at all, and many weekends with family or friends around when he had alcohol. He also had 1 free meal per week where he could sensibly eat whatever he wanted. This is how you integrate diet into your life without having to sacrifice everything for abs.
What's up YouTube, we're back with another Catalyst client case study where we look at my favorite result of 2024 and see how Kevin went from not looking very much like Jason Statham to looking very much like him.
I'm David Mirza from Catalyst. We're a team of coaches working with successful people online as well as in central London who want to gain control over shaping their bodies and add years to their lives by losing 7 to 10 kilos in the first 12 to 15 weeks of working with us.
Kevin's starting point was pretty normal, I would say. No major limitations, no major issues, no injuries, no problems with food. He just had a bunch of weight to lose. He hasn't been that active for a while. The only small limitation we had was that he wanted to go to the gym twice per week only. But he also had a decent home gym setup. It was just a bench and a pair of dumbbells really. So we made it work with that. His eating before starting was very similar to how our clients most often start when they say they eat relatively healthy, but they're not able to manage their weight. So here's one example day of eating, and you can see it's nothing terrible, but a lot of the time when we have a client like this, they just overconsume on calories and don't necessarily notice it. They don't notice it because they consume quite calorie dense foods, so even though they consume a lot of calories, it doesn't take up that much space on their plates. So instead, what we normally do in these situations is just restructuring what the plate holds and having more on the plate for fewer calories. So starting off with this meal planner, initially we put together a structure so he didn't have to track calories, but he was still provided with a framework on how to structure his food. So we agreed that he would have 4 meals per day, which was similar to his already existing structure. This is very common: breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a 4 p.m.-ish snack. The snack serves the purpose of both curbing your hunger and cravings as well as boosting your protein intake. Once we established that he would have 4 servings of food per day, the next goal was determining how much protein he would have. And in order for him to hit his protein target, he would need to have protein with every single one of these meals. Ultimately, when you're trying to lose body fat and retain muscle as well as maybe build some, the main thing is total calorie intake, which the framework provides. Second is protein intake. Now that we had the number of meals determined as well as the total protein intake controlled, we just needed to fit carbs and fats into the diet in order to still stay within the determined calorie values. Now, we made an agreement with Kevin that he would have more flexibility in the weekends. So actually his food was set up very asymmetrically. And this is again something that we often do that suits our clients' real lives, where they just have a lower calorie intake for 5 days and then potentially a higher one for the weekend. So actually Kevin had a really extreme version of this where he was eating 1800 calories only for 5 days, and then for the weekend he was given 2900, which is quite a lot. It actually proved to be so much that he was likely not really hitting the 2900 in the weekend, so potentially he was in a little bit lower calorie intake than what we determined initially. Now technically he didn't need to eat 2900 calories, but being given 2900 for both weekend days sort of gave him the freedom to do whatever he wanted in those 2 days. Technically, the food structure for those 2 days was different as well. It was meant to be 2 free meals per week, so both of those days would have included 1 free meal. Before starting, Kevin was also enjoying his drink, so there was something to cut down on as well. So we agreed on maximum 6 units of alcohol per week, and that was, to be honest, also factored into the 2900. So basically the 6 units of alcohol would have taken up anywhere between 1000 to 1500 calories of his weekly allowance. Now you need to understand this sort of structure works for everyone. Your week doesn't need to be linear. You don't need to intake the same amount of calories every single day. I like thinking about this as a sort of weekly allowance and then distributing it across the week however it suits the clients. social structure. And basically for Kevin, that meant that he was having an average of 2000 calories per day if you draw the average between the 5 lower days and 2 higher days. So an average of 2100 calories, which equals 14,500 calories for the week, out of which 1,500 was allocated to alcohol, a further 4,500 to larger meals in the 2 weekend days, and the rest was spread across between the remaining 5 weekdays. Now, in order for him to stay within those 1,800 calories roughly for his lower days, he would have had to have 2 servings of carbs only and 1 serving of fat on top of his 3 servings of lean protein and 1 serving of fatty protein. I think it's really important to distinguish between lean and fatty protein sources. A lot of people consume a lot of protein, but it all comes from fatty fish and chicken thigh and eggs, and they wonder why they cannot either keep themselves full or lose body fat. And it's because all of these protein servings, instead of just providing protein, they also provide a lot of fats. So now they are anywhere between 400 or 500 calories per serving instead of the 150 200 that it should be if you just substituted it with a lean protein source such as lean fishes and other seafood or chicken breast. So to summarize, all of his fat intake was coming from 1 serving of fatty protein source and 1 serving of actual fats. And then obviously I expected his weekend meals, the free meals, to be higher in fats. That's just the rule of thumb. Whenever you go out, whenever you have a meal out, it will always be higher in fats whether you want it or not. And he also had 2 servings of carbs, which we just allocated to his lunch and his dinner. I also put a note in his meal planner which said on the day of your free meal you basically substitute a meal, dinner or lunch, with your free meal. So it's just simple substitution, no further deductions for that meal out, because his allowance for those free meals in the weekends was so much higher that we didn't need to deduct anything. It was a simple meal substitution for a higher calorie meal. And to provide him with some more flexibility, especially when he goes to work, for example, we agreed that on normal days his lunch could be substituted with anything of roughly 600 calories maximum and minimum 25 grams of protein. So to be honest, this would apply to most sort of chains. Pret a Manger, Leon, Subway all have options where you can get something for 25 grams of protein and maximum 600 calories. Now, the further pages of the meal planner go in detail on what lean protein sources are, what fatty protein sources are, what are carbs and what are fats, and it gives exact quantities for each of those. So all Kevin had to do was pick from each of those tables in the desired quantities. Regarding his progress, as you can see, we started on the 6th of November with 89 kilos and ended with the 9th of March with his photo shoot at 75 kilos. So that's exactly 4 months and exactly 14 kilos. And to be honest, we had these 3 weeks where he was doing things by himself and he didn't check in with me. And obviously we also had Christmas in the middle of it, which, as you can see, cost us 2 weeks. So from the 25th of December until the 7th of January, there was no progress. In fact, he gained 0.5% of body weight in each of those weeks. Regarding his training program, like I said, we had 2 gym sessions and 1 home training session. The home training session was sort of a top-up fun session where we just focused on more easier movements. It was like a beach muscle session, basically. So we did push-ups, lateral raises, arms in the forms of bicep, tricep, and some abs. I think obviously that enjoyment of training sessions hugely contributes to adherence. If you hate the session, there's a lower chance of you getting it done. So I deliberately made this home session more fun, more easy, and actually quicker to do as well. Kevin is a really busy man. He won't want to allocate 1.5 hours to training at home on a Saturday. So I wanted to make this as smooth, as quick, and as enjoyable as possible. And the 2 gym sessions were both full body training, which is something I talk a lot about and I made an entire video out of, where actually Kevin was the cover of the video and some people didn't believe his transformation. But if you're a busy professional as well, instead of going to the gym 6 times a week or hitting a different muscle group every single time you go, your goal should be training the same muscle hard as many times per week as you can. So instead of giving him a stupid body part split, we just learn to efficiently with 1 exercise, so 2 or 3 sets per session, really just completely annihilate a certain muscle group. So one of the gym sessions had a split squat variation and the other one had a leg pressing variation. I really enjoy putting different sort of lower body pushes for clients. So instead of having the same exact foot position and a similar movement pattern like a squat and the leg press, I think incorporating these different positions such as a split squat is hugely beneficial. We had a rowing movement as well as a pull down in one session, because obviously he was not able to train his back in his home session, so I wanted to compensate a little bit for that. The home session neither had enough weights nor the necessary setup to effectively train the back, and we had another rowing variation in the other session. When it comes to pressing, we had a dumbbell press in one session and a Smith machine press in the other, and then we filled out the rest of the sessions with more spine and shoulder blade wiggly movements. When it comes to lower body pulling movements, we just had a lying leg curl and an abduction instead of a hinging pattern. Often what you will find is most people won't be able to effectively hinge when they get started, so I needed him to lose some body fat, get some awareness in the gym, get more experience with different lower body pulling movements before incorporating an actual hinge in the second phase of his training program, where we would put a dumbbell RDL. Kevin and I basically never met until his photo shoot. He was a purely online client. He checked in with me once per week, but we also talked every single day. Every single day he was sending me food pictures so we could monitor his food intake, potentially filter out any issues that we needed to filter out. And he was making very nice and linear progress all the way down with just 2 spikes, one being the Christmas spike and the second one being a little spike after the photo shoot itself, after which he quickly corrected back. Kevin's photo shoot turned out absolutely amazing. He looked exactly how he wanted to, and the photographer did an amazing job as well, sort of tailoring the whole theme of the pictures to suit that Statham look that he was after. Obviously it was lucky for Kevin that he actually looked like Jason Statham. He had a decent amount of muscle. If I get someone as a client without any muscle, it's very hard to make them into Jason Statham. So he had a similar physique, similar proportions, and it was just building a little bit more on it, as well as shaving all the body fat off that was covering the already existing muscles. So yeah, every participant was extremely happy with the outputs of this photo shoot. And now actually almost a year later, he's in pretty much the same shape. Still lean, still super ripped. Let's look at what his experience was like according to him.
So in total, I've been working with David for 4 months. That did factor in 2 weeks of Christmas, which was pretty much not, I did the training, but ate and drank everything you'd expect over a Christmas period. But still, over that 4 months, I lost 14 kilograms, and it's been a big change, huge change. Energy levels, my waist circumference around my belly button's gone in by about 24 centimeters, and just feel fitter and better. Clothes that haven't fitted me since I was in my 30s or early 30s and now fit again, dropping from 89 kilograms to 75 kilograms. It's been a game changer, absolutely huge. Before training with David, I guess I'd got to a point, a sort of 10-year process really of getting less healthy, putting on weight, doing fewer activities, and I'm in my mid-40s now, and I've got 3 children. I was always very, very active with them when they were younger, in all sorts of things as you'd expect. Also have a 4-year-old, and I was realising as I was doing things with him, I just don't have the same energy levels or ability to just get stuck in like I did before, and that wasn't good. So that was really the catalyst for getting started. So at the point of starting, not in a great place. Health-wise, pretty low in terms of energy levels, feeling not great in myself, mentally really off, tough few years outside of various different things. This was a really good chance to kind of start carving out some time for myself, which I did. It was really, really good experience. Just the meticulous detail around what I needed to eat, how I needed to eat it, and the impact, and he was bang on. So even though I was eating a lot, on the day of my shoot, I was the lightest I'd been, the fittest I'd been, and the best condition I'd been. Trust in David. He's definitely someone to work with, and he's absolutely exceeded my expectations, and I couldn't recommend him highly enough.